so before I get too carried away with my presentation, I'm just going to give you a fair warning. If you're eating spaghetti, or anything to do with noodles for that matter, you might want to put it aside for the rest of the video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about feline intestinal worms. I'll introduce you to the top 3 most common worms found in your cat, as well as the general signs of a worm infection, and also I'll go over some preventative measures that you can take to keep your cat healthy. First, let's look at the roundworms. These guys can get 3 to 6 centimeters long, and they live freely in the intestine. Infection of these worms usually happens when your cat ingests infected prey, such as mice, birds, rats, etc. Kittens, however, will often get these worms when their mothers have infected mammary glands, because the larvae of these worms can shed into the mother's milk. Often, infection of roundworms in kittens is more severe than in adult cats, and if the numbers of roundworms is too high in your kitten, it can actually be fatal for the cat. If you have more than one cat at home, they can spread roundworms between each other via their feces. Okay, next we'll look at hookworms. So these guys get their names because they like to hook into the intestinal lining, like little vampires, and they'll suck your blood's cap, often causing anemia, which is a low red blood cell count. And once again, this condition is worse in kittens than in adult cats. So your cat acquires hookworms via penetration of the skin. So hookworm larvae like to live in contaminated soil or water or whatever substrate, and when your cat walks over it, the larvae will actually bury into the cat's foot, and this is how your cat will get hookworms. Kittens, once again, can acquire these worms through the mother's milk, just like we saw in roundworms. Next, we have the tapeworm. So these guys, I like to call them nature's parasitic fettuccine, because look at them, they're disgusting. They can get up to 28 inches long, and they also like to hook themselves into your cat's intestines. These guys, they have segments called proglottids, which will actually slough off the body, and each one of these segments can contain up to 20 viable tapeworm eggs, and these will slough off into the cat's feces. So there's more than one type of tapeworm, but the most common tapeworm that'll infect your cat is actually hosted by fleas. So if your cat has a flea bite, it'll go to attend that flea bite, and in doing so, it'll lick or chew or whatever, and it'll eat the flea, and then it'll get the tapeworm along with it, because the larvae will be on the flea, or in the flea, sorry. The other type of tapeworm that is less common, these guys are hosted by mice, birds, or rabbits. So how do you know if your cat has worms? So some telltale signs can be weight loss, because essentially these worms are stealing your cat's nutrients. Bloated belly. So yes, your cat might be fat, but there also could be something else going on in there. Diarrhea. So your cat actually could have blood in its stool as well. Lethargy, or just general poor health, could be a sign of these worm infections. And then of course you can have visible traces of worms, either on the cat's rear end or in the feces. And then you've got the famous butt scoot, which I'm sure you've all seen before. So even with these signs, it's always important to go to your vet if you suspect that your cat has worms. Your cat or your vet will set your cat up with the proper deworming schedule, as well as treatment plan. So what can you do to help keep your cat healthy and worm-free? So you want to practice good litter box habits. This includes frequent removal of feces as often as possible. And then you should be sanitizing your cat's litter box as much as you can. It's also a good idea to keep your cat indoors. I know it's not always possible, but this limits the exposure to worm sources. And if you do have an outdoor cat, it's a good idea to try and keep your yard free of rodents and also keep the feces out of your yard. The best bet for your cat, though, is regular veterinary checkups, because once again, your vet will know the deworming programs that your cat needs. It's also a good idea to treat your cat for fleas, because as we've seen before, tapeworms are hosted by fleas, so this will limit that exposure as well. Okay, so just to recap what we've gone over, we looked at the top 3 most common worms found in your cat. We looked at the general signs of a worm infection, and then we also talked about preventative measures that you can take to keep your cat worm-free. I hope this video helped you out. Now you can continue eating your spaghetti.